Should be on.
I think
Hello?
you have to get rid of the red dot.
Not on.
There you go.
Not loud. Nope.
Not quite. Go turn the red dot off and then see, because it was going through on the Zoom with it off. Now they just got to pipe you into the room.
Nancy?
No, that's off.
Actually, earlier the red dot was on.
Oh, was it?
Okay. Mine isn't on yet. I don't know.
Well, but he doesn't want to.
Yours is
You
green.
want to come down here?
Is that one working? Nope.
Do we need a separate mic for the room audio?
Good evening. It's 5:35. I'd like to call this meeting of the optional forms of county government to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Kurt?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make two changes. The approval of the minutes, item number 5, I have not seen them. I don't know if anyone else has to review it. We can defer that to next week, and is the next meeting. And the other thing would be item 7, which is the items for next week's agenda. My understanding is we do have two people committed now to come to the meeting and don't need to be adding anyone to it at this point. And I request that also be taken off.
We have a motion to change the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Phil Ward has made the motion. Kurt has made the second. Vote. The agenda is changed. We're here tonight to review the performance of our county government. We've been collecting information for several months, and tonight we're asking you, the citizens of Kootenai County, to provide information which we may not have received elsewhere regarding the performance of the county. You've been asked to sign up at the door to speak. You will be called to speak in the order in which you've signed in. We will adjourn at 8 p.m. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please do not cheer or jeer speakers. Speakers who run long and cheering will limit the number of speakers who can address this commission. This is a public comment, not a question and answer session. I ask the commissioners to not ask the speakers questions so as to allow more speakers to address this commission. With that, we will begin the public comment. The first name on the list I have is a Rose Jerkovac. And I apologize in advance if I'm killing anyone's name.
That was correct. Okay. Hi, I am Rose Jurkovac, and I live in Post Falls. I recently attended the September 15th meeting in support of Sheriff Norris. I stayed until the end of the meeting, and I have some concerns that I would like to address. I am concerned about the integrity of some of these board members. Firstly, I noticed disrespect toward Sheriff Norris and verbal abuse towards some of the attendees. I was confused about how the sheriff's integrity was questioned, considering his experience, knowledge, and ability to handle pressure beyond our imagination. There is also a discussion to hire the position of the sheriff, and I would question the election integrity if the citizens chose to have a sheriff elected, considering Sheriff Norris earned the trust of his community. Also, I was quite disgusted at the attitude toward the attendees. I understand that some of them were a bit out of hand, but it is no excuse for yelling, "Shut up," at a room full of grown adults during the recess. These incidents, along with others, give me reason to question the integrity of this board. My second concern is about the relationship with Kootenai County. This board is designed to discuss ways to improve the community, but much of the conversation on the 15th turned toward finances. I was appalled to hear that the local government squeezes every penny from the sheriff's office just to put it somewhere out of the public's eye. I fear that decisions made by this board will not reflect the community's needs or wants. And to mirror this, how can this board understand the needs or wants without having more open discussions? I know that public comments can be written, but in a county of 170,000 plus people, we could gain unity and value if we could hear each other speak during more open comment meetings. How can the board reflect the community if they do not know us face to face? My final point has to do with adding to the Board of Commissioners. I have read history books, so I know that larger government is harmful to an individualistic free society. We are dealing with overreach globally, so I do fear that having a larger local government might lead to more localized overreach within Kootenai County. We are one of the few places in the U.S. who is not as affected by the current overreach in the White House, only because the community has stepped up against it. I fear that more commissioners will lead to deafness toward the community. I fear that an appointed sheriff would be a critical failure to the integrity of the republic. The bigger the government, the smaller the people. Maybe that is what you guys want for the future, but it is not what we want for the future. I hope you consider my concerns. While I may not have as much life experience as others here, I am not ignorant to disrespect. Intention. This community is made up of individuals who care about our neighbors and our children. We can choose who we want in office, and we should be valued as individuals. According to Idaho's state constitution, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit. It is not the other way around. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Don Warner.
My name is Don Warner, and I live on Kidd Island. I've attended the majority of commission meetings, and my observations, recommendations are as follows. Number one, no matter what or who was behind forming the Optional Forms of Government Study Commission, the testimony and answers provided by a cadre of very qualified interviewees has clearly demonstrated the issue is not the form of government in Kootenai County. Two, I want to exercise my freedom to vote for elected officials, and I believe that is the consensus of the voters as well. Three, we've heard from many of the best who are or were responsible for the governmental leadership of Kootenai County, and that their needs revolve around practical, everyday support in the workplace to meet their mission, the needs of the employees, and the voters. During the interviews, we've heard the issues, inefficiencies, duplication of effort, decision-making without data, non-sharing of best practices within or from other counties, silos, poor processes, broken or not documented, and so forth. Given the consistent recommendations of the majority of the interviewees, I have three suggestions. One, move quickly on bringing forth a very qualified county manager who would provide the desperately needed day-to-day continuity corporate history and which would allow the commissioners and elected officials to focus on the big picture. Remember Ben Wolfinger getting out of the office and going to Harrison and asking, how are we doing? All three entities, the BOCC, the elected officials, and the county manager need to work collaboratively together as a team, T-E-A-M, within the framework of the statutes and not allow politics or the desire for control to invade their efficiency and effectiveness in supporting the employees and the voters. Two, in parallel, I strongly recommend that the county begin an organizational effectiveness assessment that would focus on commitment, behaviors, culture, metrics, technology, and strategic long-range planning. I'm reminded of Bilo Kovacs and the need for data for decision-making, as he told us, and also of Sheriff Norris and his room full of hard copy records. Three, it would benefit, if not a must, to have a county manager to be part of and grow with an organizational effectiveness assessment. As a result of this BOCC study, Kootenai County government has an opportunity to build on what has been recommended by those who have been interviewed and to be a model government leader in the state of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you. Evan Koch.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners, for your good work. And thank you also for persisting in the face of what has been, I'm sure, a very stressful opposition. The Kootenai County Democrats urge you to focus on 4 self-evident points that would preserve a voter's rights, provide a more responsive, more stable, more consistent, and more accountable government. Number 1, a 5 to 7 commissioner government would be more responsive to voters, not less. Number 2, a 5 to 7 commissioner government would be less susceptible to a power grab than a 3 commissioner government. A hired administrator would be a career professional who administers consistently over time. A hired administrator would be an employee who is easy to hold accountable on a day-to-day basis. Hired rather than elected officials can rise above their party affiliation to serve the needs of all the county residents and not just those who are their constituents or support them for re-election. In addition to these obvious and practical considerations, Democrats believe that your commission and our county government have the moral duty to respect the minority party. The GOP has a supermajority in this county, and it's weaponized that majority to control North Idaho College and the county libraries. The GOP now seeks to extend that control over all the other nonpartisan institutions in our county. A healthy county government would prevent this power grab and safeguard the rights of all its citizens. Democrats therefore call upon you to increase the number of county commissioners to 5 or 7, and to hire county officials and to hire an administrator to oversee them. Thanks a lot.
Linda Putz. Linda Putz.
Gotta speak up a little more, they can't hear.
Yeah, I apologize, did not hear. Hello, my name is Linda Putz, and as the majority of people I think that are new to North Idaho, we are political refugees from California, and I know there's a lot of Washington here also. And of course, we came here all with the hopes and the dreams of the true North Idaho lifestyle, which we, at one time, I think growing up like 60 plus years ago in California, life was very different. And we all watched our states take a tumble because everything got corrupt. As you know, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power absolutely corrupts. No one denies that. And I think the idea of having one county manager in charge of all elected, not all, but the slotted elected offices would be extremely dangerous to all of us. First of all, you'd have a county manager that would be a hireling, not a public servant. And I think what's happened along the way is we've somehow become wealthy by becoming public servants, and we're not supposed to be wealthy becoming public servants. When we look at George Washington and what he did, what did he want to do? He just wanted to go back and be a farmer, because he served, and then he was ready to just live his life quietly. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's become a career path, a way to wealth, and a way in which people are, unfortunately, bought off. I think preserving our right to vote for our elected officials is extremely important. I was extremely impressive when the county clerk came in and spoke about why Idaho has such, turn this off, it's buzzing too much, sorry. Why we have such a great recuperation rate with the welfare rolls. You know, you just drive 12 miles across the state line and you see homeless all over in Spokane, whereas here we don't have that. And I didn't understand quite why. When I found out that the clerk goes and takes back, really, we give a lending hand, not a handout. I fear that with certain people appointed, not elected, might be more inclined to think it's the compassionate thing to do. And unfortunately, that's a misplaced compassion. As all of us, especially those from Southern California, we can attest to the problem with the homeless situation when there's misplaced compassion. I would hate to see a county clerk appointed that would no longer go after the monies that have been given and turn around and be recovered. We are asking, I am not in a position to really make a recommendation as to what you guys should do, except to say, preserve the people's right to vote. That is how we keep a republic going. We are not a democracy. I'm sure you all know that. We are a republic, and the people have that right to retain a republic by having the right to vote for their officials. Thank you.
Randy Neal.
A considerable amount of talk that I've heard in attending these meetings talks about efficiency and effectiveness. What about principles? We the people demand a representative government. We want accountability and transparency and must maintain a separation of powers, system of checks and balances. 5 part-time commissioners would serve to reduce accountability and transparency. Merging positions would violate the separation of powers and also disrupt the system of checks and balances. Appointing positions is not a representative government. It is not a separation of powers, and it also disrupts the system of checks and balances. A county manager should not appoint or control any official. That is also a disruption to the system of checks and balances and the separation of powers. This study commission is a smokescreen for Brooks and Filios to hide behind. No one has been able to articulate a problem with this county's current form of government. This is about reducing accountability and transparency, gaining power, and disrupting the system of checks and balances. Brooks does not represent anything besides his own interests. He lied to get into his office. As we all know, he started out as a Republican, and the Republican Central Committee helped him get elected. But he is not a Republican. He falsely portrayed himself, and he does not represent. I implore the members of this study commission, do not, even though you are appointed by Brooks and Filios, do not hold yourselves accountable to morally bankrupt, corrupt government politicians.
Dan Putz.
Hello, my name's Dan Putz, and my family and I live in Hayden, Idaho, and we love being here. This is a beautiful place. We want to see it stay that way. I was a police officer for over 32 and a half years and worked for a major metropolitan police department, and I got to work under optional forms of government, so I can speak from my experience. When I joined the police department, my first half of the career, our police chief reported to the police commission and a group of people. During that time, things were good. There was very little political corruption, morale was high, and crime was down. Later on, that all changed. Throughout history, we go from one thing back, we go back and forth. So our police department changed. Our police chief went under the direction of one person, okay? That one person had the ability to hire and fire a police chief. That's when we saw things change. That one person decided what the police department was going to enforce and what it wasn't going to enforce. It decided what groups laws would be enforced against and which groups they would not be enforced against. Money and power lead to corruption, and when one person is given the power to hire and fire our law enforcement officials, that's where the people lose their freedom and their protection. So from my experience, I can say that one person, it's not good when one person has that kind of power. We're a republic, we need to elect our officials, and we want to remain free. Thank you.
Mark Price.
Thank you for the opportunity to finally be able to speak. I've lived here 18 years, and actually even being able to stand here is just preposterous that we're even having to give testimony like this. I'm just your garden variety citizen, which was, referred to in one of your other meetings that was also disrespectful. I supported the commissioners when they ran, a decision I absolutely regret in 2 cases. When they were complaining, or campaigning, I didn't hear a peep about a study commission being appointed to take our voting rights from us. They had faith in us garden variety citizens then to elect them, but they now have decided we don't possess the intellectual prowess to understand how the system works or how to stay informed on key issues. This was from a speaker invited by your panel, which is present with us today. I might not have a 4-year college education or any letters or dots after my name, but I am intelligent enough to see and understand when an attempt is being made to strip me of my rights. And I think most of the other garden variety citizens in this room who voted for the commissioners see this as well. Commissioner Brooks drives around in a van, we the people, all over, big, bold words, while at the same time betraying those very words with a blatant attempt to undermine the very meaning of those words. Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, let me help you guys out a little bit. We the people are here, and we the people are pissed. Listen to the progressive liberal speakers sit in this room and disrespect the voters and us garden variety citizens of this community. I've sat in here and listened to you, Mr. Botting, shout down the voters like you're some kind of head mistress. What you and 2 commissioners are doing here isn't right. It won't be tolerated. And sometimes civil disobedience becomes duty when we, the people, have our God-given rights trampled upon. Thank you.
Daryl Jenkins.
Yes, my name is Daryl Jenkins. I've lived in Kootenai County for 24 years. I moved up here to escape California and to experience paradise. We here in Kootenai County have had a local government that has worked well for many years. Maintain my right as a citizen for county to be able to vote myself for county elected officials. Register my stand as no change.
Justin Allen.
Beginning of this meeting, you guys pledged allegiance to that flag. That flag represents this country and the Constitution that you pledged allegiance to at the beginning of this. And what the Commission is trying to do goes against our Constitution. You're paid by the people. You work for the people. You are controlled by the people. When you're not doing your job and want to violate your oath, you become enemies of the people. This country's at a crossroads and is on the verge of evil times. We need our society strong, with strong leaders. Your change of government weakens our society, and that put my family at risk. I will not allow it. My family has been in Idaho for over 100 years. we've seen it change over time. But we have stayed a safe, small community because of the conservatives that we elect. We elect those people to represent us, not to be puppets. God made men to be free, with free choice. If you push this and take away what God intended, you might make us desperate. You may be sorry you did.
Catherine Brooks.
Yes, my name is Catherine Brooks, and I live in Post Falls. Thank you for taking public comments. I'm opposed to changes in the current form of government in Kootenai County, most especially to changes in voting for elected officials, especially our sheriff, who has such a direct impact on our daily lives. There definitely should be no bureaucrat appointed to be in charge of hiring and firing currently elected officials. Our founding fathers pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to establish a new country. Excuse me. I love America. With a recognition of our God-given rights, with the power given to we the people.
Nina Beasley.
Good evening. My name is Nina Beasley and I'm a resident of Rathdrum. I've listened to every meeting from this study commission and half of them twice. I do not believe that there needs to be a change to the structure of our current form of government. Every elected representative that has testified has concurred. Our county needs 3 full-time commissioners. If we change to 5 part-time commissioners, we will get less time, service, and commitment. When looking at numbers, 3 full-time commissioners theoretically provide 120 hours of service versus the 100 hours of 5 part-time commissioners. 5 part-time commissioners will most likely have full-time jobs as well as having a family. The job of a commissioner is a large responsibility. It is a full-time job. There are only 2 commissioners, Filios and Brooks, that are complaining about their job responsibilities. No other elected official or department is. This is not a structural problem. This is a problem with 2 commissioners. At this current time, if Commissioner Brooks and Filios need extra help, they can hire additional staff, such as a county manager, without changing our current form of government. Another reason I do not believe we should change from 3 full-time commissioners to 5 part-time commissioners is for transparency purposes. The chair of the Democratic Party, Evan Koch, recommended 5 part-time commissioners so they can discuss things in secret, specifically in secret. Both Evan Koch and Filios complain that the people do not know what is going on in county government. How is talking in secret going to help people know even more? If the commissioners have something to say, they can say it in an open meeting. I absolutely oppose changing our elected representatives to appointed officials. On September 28, 1820, Thomas Jefferson said, "I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of society but the people themselves, and if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power." After listening to the testimonies of our elected representatives, I think the citizens of Kootenai County have done an excellent job in selecting their representatives, with the exception of Commissioner Filios and Brooks. Because of those mistakes, many of the people have gotten smarter, such as increasing their participation in local meetings, rating and vetting their candidates better, and doing all they can to make sure those mistakes don't happen again. Thomas Jefferson stated, "The good sense of the people will always be found to be the best army. They may be led astray for a moment, but will soon correct themselves." As for the study commission, I do not think the bylaws should be changed to exclude the alternates from deliberation. Their contributions have been extremely valuable. I also do not believe Bruce Matari should resign. If anyone should step down, it should be Dave Botting. It was not right for him to abuse his chair powers to disclose names and emails of citizens to the Coeur d'Alene press without getting their consent first. That is a clear abuse of power and an abuse of trust. Thank you.
Forrest Brook.
Thank you for taking public testimony. First, my preference is to not change at all the current system of government for Kootenai County. Thus, no vote would ever be necessary that would reduce the control of the government by we, the people. If some changes are made, the current election of public officials, like the sheriff, by we, the people, must not be changed. Any imposition of a new government bureaucrat with the power to hire and fire these positions in order to make government more efficient is merely a ploy to take we, the people, most significant right away, the right to choose those particular officials who most affect our daily life. We, the people, may make mistakes occasionally on those we elect, but if so, we, the people, can directly fix the problem of officials at the next election. Thank you.
Is it Mike Morgan? Mungan, sorry.
Well, hi there. I didn't realize I was going to say anything today till about my second glass of wine at dinner. But I was thinking about what the founders did when they.
You may have two mics there.
Move your hands back from the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how our country was put together over dinner, and I think about what the founders did. What their main pillar was when they decided how to form government, and the main pillar that, as I understand it, is that they have separation of powers. Pretty important. Can give you an example, a real life current day example of where that separation of powers has failed us. All you have to do is look at Washington, D.C. and look at Mayor Garland. He has effectively become, he's the chief law enforcement in the United States, and he's effectively become a political pawn. He's become a tool for the president. So if you guys decide, or put it on the ballot for us to decide, I guess, that is how we're going to elect our sheriff, how does that go along with what the founders decided for us in the beginning? Where is that separation of powers? Our Democrat friend who stood up talked about keeping the, I don't know if he's talking about just law enforcement, I don't know if we're only talking about the sheriff election here, but he discussed being able to keep the sheriff accountable, but accountable to who? Accountable to the elected official or accountable to the people who elected him? What's more important? Take a look at our federal government. Mayor Garland is probably the biggest politician in the group. If you look at what he decided to attack over the last year's time, all of the issues he's chasing are political issues. They're not, law enforcement issues, in my opinion. So is that what we're going to create here in Kootenai County? If you were to take our ability to, if you were to take that separation that is hideously important and recreate what they've done wrong in Washington, D.C., I think it would be a big mistake in our county. Yeah, I guess that's all I got to say, but so don't do it.
Kevin Hockendorf.
Hello, my name is Kevin Heckendorf, and I speak on behalf of about 20 of my immediate and extended family, as well as numerous friends living here in Kootenai County. I'm grateful that everyone is here tonight, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to share our thoughts and voice our concerns. I'm going to keep my comments brief because I think that most of us in this room have been saying a lot of the same things, and I'm in agreement with most of what was been said, except for the one friend that was up here earlier. The most important consideration before this commission has to do with our county elected officials. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, it is that local government and local community control is incredibly and increasingly important to our daily lives. I'm wholeheartedly opposed to the elimination of our county elected officials. All local control by the electorate is incredibly important, and by that measure, I strongly oppose the elimination of any of these 6 currently elected positions. Of these 6 positions, the DA, sheriff, and county assessor stand out as needing special attention. Eliminating an elected DA and sheriff, the top law enforcement and prosecutor position in the county, seems devious. The county sheriff is our constitutionally guaranteed elected magistrate, and to change this office to an appointed position seems to swing the door of corruption wide open. I view the elimination of the elected DA in the same way. Regarding the assessor, as we all know, this county is experiencing exponential growth. Now more than ever, we need an elected assessor, accountable to the citizens of this county. The people of this county must be allowed to have oversight and hold all of our elected officials accountable. I ask you, this study commission, to respect the right of we the people, and please uphold our rights to maintain our elected officials. Thank you.
Michael Lentz.
Thank you all for taking comments. Appreciate you scheduling this in earlier rather than later. I had hoped to be able to say that I was at every meeting. I was at the first couple meetings when there was only 2 people in the audience, I think. But a month ago I got the COVID right when I filed to run for mayor, so I've missed the last few meetings. One of the things that's disappointed me about this commission, and I'm not ascribing any motives, I'm not saying there's any ill intent, but one of the things that's disappointed me as an observer is that there seem to be quite a few questions asked of all the interviewers on the efficiency of government or how it can be more efficient, but there seem to be very few questions about how will this benefit citizens of Kootenai County? How will this benefit the county? How will it benefit the voters? And so I hope in your deliberation process that you take that a little more into consideration. I feel like through all the testimonies that I was here for, there's 2 unfortunate truths in the testimony that now you have to wrestle with. One of them seems to be that the Board of County Commissioners can right now create a position similar to what has been advocated for with the manager. And so it's quite the head scratcher as to why they didn't just do that as opposed to experimenting with lots of changes in the government. The other unfortunate truth in all of the testimonies, from what I can tell, and I believe it was Ms. Beasley who highlighted this as well, is that it's really about the people who are in the job. And so it seems like from a lot of the testimony, if somebody's motivated, if they're enthusiastic about the job, that they seem to do a good job and they seem to be fine with the job. And for others who expressed maybe the frustration, they definitely seemed less enthusiastic and motivated. So the question is that you obviously will have to wrestle with whether any changes in the government can get anybody who's better for the job. And I don't feel like I heard any testimony or anybody say anything about changes in government actually getting anybody in for the job who would be better at the job. And then in addition to that, one of the proposed changes is, okay, well, let's change it from 3 to 5 or 7 part-time commissioners. But has anybody known anybody who does anything part-time who's better than somebody who does it full-time? That doesn't exist anywhere in society, I don't believe. I'm not familiar with any part-time athletes or part-time CEOs who are outperforming all of the full-time ones. So that's kind of a weird paradox that you will have to deal with in your deliberations. There was one last thing. There was a curious exchange, and I want to be clear that I am familiar with the statute. When I mentioned this, there was a curious exchange when Mr. Filios was talking, and he mentioned that it would be better to have appointed officials because there's no accountability, but that the commissioners have accountability when they go for the elections. So I think the one recommendation that I think you should make is to perhaps recommend roughly 180,000 county commissioners. Thank you.
William Lee?
I'm gonna wait my time.
Okay. David Purcell?
Good evening. My name is David Purcell. Live in Post Falls, and I want to address just one issue. I think I bring a bit of a different perspective than other people who've been here. The comments I've heard this evening are excellent, and I'm glad that you guys are hearing them. But the one perspective that I bring to this is we've only been here since April of this year. We fled the People's Republic of Washington, in Redmond, in fact, to move here. And as soon as you drive across the border, you can smell the freedom. It's in the air. And it was for freedom that we moved here. The one thing I want to address, in King County, which is just going down the tubes, it's the largest county in Washington, most populous. It's unbelievable. But anyway, it's run in King County by a King County Council. The head of the King County Council is a man named Dow Constantine. Dow Constantine, well, he's a story all by himself. But ultimately, the sheriff who was elected for King County became reporting to him. There was a vote, the people subscribed to this, and now the sheriff reports to him. You can look up on Google and see what the officers in the King County's Sheriff Department are saying. The morale is terribly low. Recruitment has really been hurt. They can't bring in officers. Officers are leaving. And it's all because they can't talk to the sheriff, because the sheriff takes her, and I can't even pronounce her name, her first name is Mitzi. She takes her marching orders from the mandates that come from Dow Constantine. And so the officers just have to dance to that tune as she dances to that tune. I urge you not to have a one person that the sheriff reports to. And by the way, what I'm saying is specific to the sheriff, but I think it also applies to all of the other elected positions. They should be elected by we the people. Thank you very much.
Roger Ruddick?
Yes, thank you. My observations would be similar to the gentleman that spoke earlier, or the former police officer. I also was a public servant and witnessed the change in our leadership, a department head, from an elected or an elected position to an appointed position. And what we saw was a lack or a loss of independence. His decision-making began to reflect political expediency rather than organizational needs or what was best for the organization. The bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, was that the citizens of this community suffered. The mission of the organization suffered. The taxpayers ultimately, the citizens of the community paid the price. So I ask that no change be made, that the district attorney and that the sheriff remain being elected positions accountable to the people. Thank you.
Bob Whitehead.
Bob Whitehead. I live in Post Falls with my wife, and we've lived here for quite a few years. I'm representing the two of us, but I'm representing we the people. And I'm only going to address the issue of the sheriff. And I want to let you know that the sheriff is our most important ally in the securing of our rights, because the sheriff is not a hireling of the state, nor a hireling of the county. The sheriff is a constitutionally elected representative of us, the people. It is his duty, by oath, to secure our rights. It is not his duty to blindly enforce the law. The sheriff is the highest authority in Kootenai County. The sheriff has the authority to deny enforcement of law, local, state, or federal, that does not secure our rights or is in conflict with our rights. That being said, do we, the people, want the government, the county commissioners, to appoint or hire our sheriff? Or do we, the people, choose to educate ourselves and elect our sheriff?
Thomas Schaefer.
My wife and I live in Hayden, Idaho. Thanks for listening to me tonight. As somebody who's ex-Air Force, I understand what it means to swear an oath to the Constitution. I didn't swear it to the President of the United States. Oh, sorry. And also, we fled the chaos, the political oppression, and the law enforcement chaos of Seattle last year. Gives you a great perspective on how things work when you have political appointees for certain jobs versus elected. The gentleman talked about the King County Sheriff, how she is a political appointee, and because of that, the decimation in the law enforcement there is horrible, because they've lost all trust in the sheriff. But I note also how sheriffs in the eastern part of Washington bravely stood up to some of the outrageous laws and edicts passed by the governor and also by the state legislature, and simply refused to enforce these unconstitutional laws. I think about our Second Amendment rights and how important they are as a last bulwark against an overreach of government. And so when I hear the idea of making a county sheriff an appointed position, it goes against every fiber that I believe in how important and how the Constitution surpasses everything else in terms of protecting and securing our rights. And I think of somebody like the sheriff here who has made those kinds of statements, and I would remind you all of how important that is in terms of protecting the rights of the citizens. And as my last comment, I just remind you that government isn't supposed to be efficient. It's supposed to represent the people who elected you. And that's all I have to say.
Mike Birdsong.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak. There's no prepared statements here. I don't feel one's actually necessary, and I'm actually pretty busy. I just come out from Spokane, from Inslee, what he's doing into Washington. We're not going to have that kind of stuff in Washington, what they had there, or they have in Seattle, or a Ted Wheeler from Portland. That doesn't work. There's a reason why northern Idaho is one of the safest places you could be in this country. You know what? Crime is up 30%, murder rates across this country. We're not going to have it here. We, the people, reserve the right to actually decide our own fate. And some of you folks up there, actually one in particular, you know, you're a little bit arrogant, you look down on people. And, you know, there's this thing called respect. You give respect, you get it back. You don't, you won't. It's pretty simple. You know, we're law-abiding citizens. We stand firm for the Constitution, which it's not a good idea to violate that. You're really going to be, for every one of us who get up here and speak, there's probably 1,000 that don't have the opportunity to come up here. So, like I said, this is not going to take me a full 3 minutes. I just highly suggest that you observe what we, the people, want. You work for us, whether you're appointed or elected. So, there you go. Have a good night.
Sandy Turner.
Hi, I'm Sandy Turner. I live in Coeur d'Alene, and these are a few pointers from the testimonies that I heard. When Sheriff Norris was interviewed, he shared that the counties he worked for in the past had more than double the population of Kootenai County and had no more than 3 commissioners. Sheriff Norris and one of the committee members watching on Zoom shared that in their research, they found there are no appointed sheriffs across the nation. All are voted for. This is why this same effort in past decades, in the mid-90s, in 2012 I think it was, this had been voted down. It will be again, I hope. When Commissioner Duncan was interviewed by this committee, she made it clear that the computer system in these government offices are seriously outdated, much the same as in the sheriff's office, but that new software has been authorized to reduce considerable wasted time in the task for commissioners to sign documents. These are a few of many factors that make it clear it is a matter of professional responsibility and capacity in the commissioners we elect that needs to be addressed, not reducing the load on a commissioner who isn't up to the task. Where is this study commission to investigate this? I will end this here. Where are the teams of voters that are pro-county change? I have not and do not see them here fighting to lose their constitutional rights, to elect officers, to protect their constitutional rights. Do you? And to add, if the definition, I wish the gentleman who was here and said his 2 bits about being a Democrat and leaving would have heard the definition of conservative. It is the Constitution of the United States, the oath we give, and if you'll look behind you, in God we trust.
Matt Edwards.
Thank you very much, all. I appreciate the fact that you've all committed to being on this commission, and I appreciate being able to speak. On the way over here, I thought about why are we all here? Why are you all doing this for the past few months? And I started thinking about how it's primarily Brooks and Filios who brought this to light. And while in the room, I listened to them say repeatedly that they would endorse whatever decision you came to. I know you're not going to be able to speak to me, but maybe with some head nods, I think that was said. Whatever you decide, they would endorse. Why? Why would they say that? Don't they have an opinion? I mean, we heard their opinion in this room of what they would change. We also heard a rather extreme proposition, 180,000 commissioners. Sounds pretty fun. What if you guys decided to do that? Would they endorse that? Sounds ridiculous. I might be insulted if I were you, if I were sitting up there and just said, oh, well, whatever we come up with, they would just endorse, as if they had no opinion. But of course they do. So it makes me suspect that they may already be willing to endorse a decision that has been predetermined. I don't know. Is this all for show? But I've been watching And I respect you folks. We're part of the same community here. We all live in this county. We're all here. So I give you all the benefit of the doubt. I respect you, and I respect that that this isn't for show, that you will deliberate honestly. Because if you don't, you should be prepared for some shame coming at you in the community. So it's my recommendation that you leave Kootenai County alone. And you save yourself the shame of trying to adopt a plan that seems to be straight out of some little tyrant's playbook. Idaho doesn't need any more progressives, left or right, looking to consolidate power in the name of saving the people from themselves. I also find it interesting that the Mr. Democrat who is here seems to be the only person so far to endorse the exact same options that Republican Chris Filios and former Republican Bill Brooks endorsed. Very strange. Thank you.
Rochelle or Rachel Otteson?
Rochelle Otteson, Rathdrum. It seems 2/3 of our commissioners are counting on, or at least hoping, that we the people are ignorant enough to vote to cede more power to out-of-control government. We're not ignorant, we're angry. We don't want these positions to be corrupted by accountability to the whims of other politicians. They need to stay accountable to we the lions. Thank you.
Ed, is it Livas?
My name is Ed Livas. I'm a resident of Kootenai County. Is this thing working?
Yeah, I think it's the small.
That thing right there? Better? Okay. My name is Ed Livas. I'm a resident of Kootenai County. I see consolidation as less transparent and less accountability to the people, to the public. The various elected officials, just want to say a couple things about them. The coroner's office, for example, is independent and is charged with determining the cause of death of many, various things within the county. And as an example, there's doubt in many people's minds as to what's going on in the hospital with all these COVID deaths. You know, that position could, if they wanted to, independently investigate what the real truth is. If they were consolidated with the rest of the county administration, that could very well not happen. Now, it may not happen now because he doesn't want to, but that's accountability to us. The clerk is the auditor for the county. Doesn't make any sense to me to have the clerk respond or report to the people that are spending the money, making the laws and spending the money. It needs to be independent. It needs to be kept independent. The sheriff's office, moving them under the commissioners or a central county manager would make them a tool of the commissioners so that if they wanted to enforce some unconstitutional COVID mandate, they could use them for that. That's wrong. Frankly, I think there should be more positions to be elected so that there could be increased accountability and transparency of the public. You need to trust the people to judge the elected officials as to what their performance is and let us decide whether to keep them or not to keep them. So again, I see consolidation as less transparency and less accountability to the public, and I do not support a reduction in accountability to save a few bucks.
Laura Van Voorhees.
Hello. Like so many other people in this room, how many of you have moved here for freedom and liberty? Yay! Okay, well that's why I moved here. I escaped California, I have escaped Hawaii, and I've escaped Washington State. I moved here for freedom. I moved here to feel liberty. And I was horrified to come here and find two very disingenuous, and I might add dishonest rhinos sitting up here as commissioners trying to change our form of government that's been working just fine, that has been voted out 2 other times. And I suggest it'll be voted out again. So I see this as a complete waste of time. I also have studied the communist creep in this country, and I see it here in action now, that people try to take over forms of government by putting people in, instead of letting us elect them, by putting them in, what's the term I'm looking for? Appointed. Yeah, that's how they take over governments locally, and then they take over states, and they're taking over our country under our noses right now. I see it in the school system. That's what I've been most involved in, and where they're socially engineering our children, and where they're indoctrinating them with equity. It's communism, and that's what this is trying to do, and we're not going to allow it. We reject it, and we hope you reject it too.
Lloyd Scott.
Does that thing work? This is a microphone. Can y'all hear me back there? First of all, each and every one of you are employees of a private for-profit corporation masquerading as a government. And what I just told you rips away your supposed immunity for committing crimes. Bonnie, I understand that you're the one that's spearheading this. You can expect to stand trial for crimes against humanity. Our sheriff is elected by we the people. That sheriff gets together with other sheriffs and he creates a state. You guys got no authority to take our sheriff. You're a bunch of psychopaths and you need to be reined in. You need to get off the committee and go home.
Is Eric Seeley still here? Eric Seeley?
Thank you. My name is Eric Seeley. I want to appreciate the public input here. We still live in a free country. To give some free input is a blessing, isn't it? Yes. So I represent my family in Kootenai here. And Athel, I have one question for the crowd. Is there any other pastors here? Okay, so as a former pastor of Redeeming Grace Church here in Kootenai County, in Coeur d'Alene, I'm going to speak a little bit in representing the pastors network here. If that would be okay with you? All right. Then I will quote a couple of scriptures from God's holy word. It's pretty simple. God says, "You shall not pervert justice. You shall not show partiality, nor take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. You shall follow what is altogether just, that you may live and inherit the land which the Lord your God is giving you." I mean, haven't we been inherited a really cool land here in Kootenai County? Let's keep it that way. Don't pervert justice. Do mercy. Walk humbly with our God. We don't ask much. Don't complicate things. It's very simple. Scripture is very clear. Now, there are different ways of administering justice. I get it. But at the end of the day, you are held accountable to God, and you do swear an oath to this Creator. And the Lord typically uses the people of the land to, as almost a clarion call of the will of God. Not always, don't get me wrong, but to go against the will of the people, you better, I warn you, you better know God's on your side. Because typically, God's normative way of speaking his will is through the people. So listen to the people. I've been through this in 2013, sitting in the city council downtown. I had over 500 people, crowded room, fire marshals called because there wasn't enough space. And it was 500 against 3 of we the people, and they already had their minds made up. County council, don't let that happen today in 2021. I beg you. Thank you.
T.J. Farrell.
My name's T.J. Farrell. I live in Athol. I've been here about 5 years. I listened to the coroner, the DA, the sheriff, and they all have the same opinion. They need more help. They need money. They want to remain elected. It's perfectly clear. That's their choice. I think the last thing we need is one more layer between us and the people that are representing us. I think that's really asking for trouble. It is serving one agenda, and it's not ours. And I think we need to look at making these crazy changes real hard, because looking around and seeing what's happening to our nation, things are getting kind of crazy. As far as the commissioners, there seems to be a common denominator that every one of these elected people said. They need money, they need cooperation, and if you folks being the commissioners, need somebody to help you do it, I think that's fine. I think the number of commissioners right now is perfect. I don't think we need any more. There's some accountability, otherwise it just gets spread out and there's less accountability. I want to thank you folks for letting me talk here, but I think it's traitorous. It's crazy that we're even here, that this agenda has been brought this far forward, and that there's a possibility that we're going to have to vote whether or not to keep our elected positions in our county. It's absolutely crazy. One thing before I leave, Dave, the way you talk to people sometimes, I don't know who put you in charge of this. To scream out at people and shout at them, I don't know who you think you are. You're one of us. You should be one of us. I can guess who you work for. I don't know that for a fact. Let's stand there and look as stoic as you want. Shame on the way you talk to people. Thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry, I cannot make out this last name. Joseph Manaus? Manaus.
I just speak from here very loud so everybody can hear me.
If you could come up to the mic, that way it goes on the record.
That's okay. All you guys need to hear the record doesn't matter. This is a naked power grab.
That's right.
You elect the power from us and give it to the politicians. There's a very simple test. You can ask any politician to take it, and you find out if they're corrupt or they're okay. Any politician that advocates for bigger government, to take more power from the people and give it to the politician, is corrupt through and through. We have only one option here, to kick them out. That's the only option we have. We all remember, if you guys have been keeping track of the news in the not the lefty. What happens in Canada and Australia. They used to be free countries. But watch what they do with the people these days. This is what exactly is going to happen here. But I can tell you all, please go to defendtherepublic.org. That is Sidney Powell's website. And donate as much money as you can. She is almost the only option we have to defend us and to find out exactly what happened in 2020 election. That's right. You guys won't believe it, but I doubt that even whatever they did in Georgia or Arizona or the other states, that it hasn't been done in Idaho. That's right. We all think Idaho is a decent Republican state, but don't be so sure about it. Even the elections here, that they use the machines, can easily be corrupted. That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Suzette Myers. Oh, thank you. And I am a Idaho native. I came back home from Idaho or from Arizona after lobbying down there for over 15 years. And I came home because I wanted to be in an area where my civil liberties were to the benefit of me and they weren't being slowly eroded away. And I sit here and I look at this meeting and I talked with my dad. My dad is a former senior magistrate judge for the state of Idaho. And you know, when I told him what was happening here, and with the retention votes and then people being appointed, his words, and I agree, are our governing officials would never be held accountable and could be as dictatorial and tyrannical as they wished. So were we to have a sheriff in office that never has a retention vote, were we to have an expansion of our government, it takes away from accountability, but more importantly, it's almost as if you're a debt collector and you want somebody to pay their bill, so you consolidate their debt so they only have one payment. Makes it easier. Here you guys are doing the exact opposite. You're expanding. You're increasing the cost by increasing the number of positions. You're increasing what the benefits are to the employees. I'm not sure what your plan is, but I can tell you that this has been evidence that we don't like it, and that as someone that has worked for an organization that has lobbied for term limits at the state level and also the federal level, I can tell you that many people here will be looking at the votes and they will be looking to see how all of you act. And then they will be also looking to see who they can be held accountable for in the election cycles. So just wanted you all to be aware of that. Thank you.
Wendy Smith.
Hello, my name is Wendy Smith. I'm in Coeur d'Alene. We, the people of Idaho, want to elect our officials. I listened to Bill Brooks compare voters to chihuahuas with microphones. Are you a chihuahua? I am not a chihuahua, and I am a voter. Bill Brooks and Chris Filios want to increase the number of commissioners in order to increase their power. However, they are the two commissioners out of three that seem to be struggling with their job duties, and they're not able to complete the duties, and that's why they've called you a study commission. So I say Bill Brooks and Chris Filios need to go, and they need to be replaced with some can-do, smart, educated people who can get the job done. Bill Brooks said that voters were not educated enough to choose their officials, but that he was specially trained to choose a city manager. He was very concerned that only he was able to do this, and then he talked about his education. So I am a voter. I am a college graduate. I am a business owner of multiple businesses. I am a mother of 7. I homeschool them. I have a minor in elementary education and a major in English literature. And I manage my household, and it's all done simultaneously. I say that I am capable of reading up on my elected officials and making a choice. This is America, and we, the voters, want to have our say in who our elected officials are. I have been concerned greatly by this study commission, especially by Dave Botting. I have seen your behavior and I have not been happy with it. So a few observations as I've come to the meetings. I have seen that you have not given women the same amount of time to speak as you have given the men. And you have targeted one woman on the study commission in particular, and I've witnessed that behavior, and that makes me think, are you sexist? Or do you just discriminate against women in general? I don't think you, Dave Botting, are qualified to be the head of this study commission after coming and observing your behavior and the way you speak to people. I also wonder if you, the commissioners, are personal friends and already corrupt with Bill Brooks and Chris Filios, the two who have possibly appointed you onto this commission in order to gain more power. So this whole thing, in my opinion, is a sham, and we need to leave things as they are and elect 2 new county commissioners. Thank you for listening.
Terry Salazar.
Good evening. My name is Terry Salazar. I also escaped a coastal state a couple of years ago. I kind of... Okay.
It's the small.
Oh, it's this little thing? Well, I also escaped a coastal state, and I was not prepared to speak here today. In fact, my husband said we should go, and I was like, really? But anyways, there are a few things I want to say. I want you to realize, and like logically, I would think you would realize, there's a few voices here speaking, but there's a whole lot of voices out there that are talking about this and talking about what these commissioners are doing and not doing. So I just want you to realize there's a whole lot more impact that this is doing on the community. And I kind of want to think, like, why do you think people want to live here? Why do you want to live here? Is it because it's a safe community? Is it because people care about people? I mean, when you walk into a store, people are actually smiling at people. You don't see that in these other towns. I'm not sure if you want to make this place like those other towns that so many people have escaped. And maybe some of you have escaped. So, one thing's about our quality of life. And as far as I know, Sheriff Norris has been doing a good job from what I've seen. I mean, our crime rate is not the crime rate we see in these other states. And so I do have a plea to maintain our checks and balances and to keep the voting rights that we have in our Constitution, in this state, and in America. And just like, it's just kind of incredible that it's even like thought of this. Appointed positions would not work for the presidency. Appointed positions would not work for Congress, in the state, in the Senate, or the House. It would not work for governors. It would not work for mayors. It would not work for the sheriff of our county or any other county. There's a reason why our Constitution set up voting systems for the people to talk and share their votes and stuff. Oh, I have the yellow light. Okay, so anyways, it's a dangerous thing to do with that. And I was thinking of this person who talked about weaponization of the GOP. I try to stay politically even. But weaponization actually happens when one person has control over another position, such as a sheriff position. So it's not, weaponization is when it's a person telling that sheriff what to do, not the people. So I'm done. Anyways, don't deny our country. Our country has so many problems right now. Don't bring those problems to our county.
William Ermentrout? William was the last one. Do we have anyone who wants to speak who didn't sign up? Sir? William, we'll get you right after this gentleman.
My name is Vern Westgate. I'm a resident of Kootenai County. I'm a resident of Coeur Grew up in south central Los Angeles. I've seen a lot of changes in government. Came to Idaho to get away from that. Raised our kids in Orange County. Okay, here's what I've seen. Oh, by the way, you can smile a little bit. Now, I don't attack the messengers. I assume you guys are the messengers, see? So I've got a smile out of her and him. Yeah, I'm not going to attack you. What I'm going to attack is Brooks. Brooks came to the History Club about 3 years ago. Nice guy, friendly and all that stuff. He wanted to get elected, so we helped him get elected. And like too many politicians, everything he said sounded good and everything he did didn't look good. And it still doesn't look good. So much for Brooks. Philios has always been kind of the second man. He's the guy behind it, kind of nudges somebody else into creating a ruckus. And then if they win, fine, he's one of them. And if they get burned, he didn't happen on his watch. That's those two guys. Okay. Now you guys are doing what I'm going to suggest we do instead of having another county commissioners. Have a project manager that handles the difficult stuff. Prioritize what's going on among the three commissioners. One of them's got a particularly tough issue, and those come up sometimes. Then let a project manager take hold of it and run it like a project. I worked on Apollo. I worked on all kinds of projects. Worked on major projects and understand that's how you get things done. You start out by knowing what it is you want to do. You come back here and say, here we are. What do we have that's going to help us get there? What do we need that's going to help us get there? You borrow the people. You need one man or one woman, and they can do that job. You don't need not a commissioner. They don't have. The people that report to them on the project don't report to them for the wages and all the rest of that stuff. So it's not a power position. It's an effective position. It makes the job get done. They know what's going on. You guys, right now, you, Dave, you're the, in my mind, the project manager. You're the guy that's in the middle of this thing. I guess you're behind all this. So you're to bring all the input from these guys. You've got a great group here. You take the input, the information from them, the opinions, they see the good and they see the bad, and they bring it all together. And then if you do it right, you'll put it all together, and then you go back to Brooks and Philios and tell if they can't handle the job, go home.
William?
Hello. I've lived here for many years. I date back since 1968 that I can remember John Bender being the sheriff of this little small Mayberry town. We loved it here. I joined the service when I was 17 and retired after 22 years. I am a combat vet. I have been seeing what's going on in this country, and it's not good. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly is under attack. I want to know whose idea was this to have an appointed sheriff or appointed anything. That cancer needs to be taken care of immediately. Because if we do not speak up and we stay silent, all we will get is the spread of a deadly disease that we cannot handle. This starts with we the people right here, okay? I've seen our flag being burnt in the streets. I'm a combat vet. I've seen my brothers not come home. I've watched what happened over in Afghanistan with the 13 military members being slaughtered. I cried like a baby watching the funeral of a Marine that came back. I cried like a baby yesterday because I know he fought for this country. See, in the military, we have the old saying, all gave some gave all. I see what is going on. I am a political watchdog. I watch what's going on in Washington, D.C., and it's not good. But we, the people, have been asleep at the helm way too long. For it is our fault to what is going on in this country right now. Right now. Tyranny, treason, sedition. It is all happening on our watch. We must wake up before it's too late. We must take back control of the helm. We're not for a big government, but DC is for to control everything. Everything. Everything that we do, they want to know what's going on. Everything. And if we don't stop it, you think you're sitting back here because you're elected? It's going to affect you too. It's going to affect your families, okay? You're just useful idiots when you do the devil's work.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself before you start.
Nicole Barnett in Hayden. We've heard a lot tonight about the sheriff and how important the sheriff is. So I would just like to give a reminder that the coroner is also vitally important. The coroner is currently the person who can fire the sheriff, making them just as vital to protecting our community. On that note, I'm deeply connected to my community. I'm involved in a lot of different groups. When I tell people that I'm coming here to this study and tell people that there are people in this community who want to take away the right to vote for our local officials, they laugh. They laugh hysterically. And I have to look them in the eye and tell them I'm serious. And then they just look at me with disgust. So I just want to speak for everyone involved in my groups and remind you that the community wants the right to vote for all of our local officials who we currently vote for, not just the sheriff, but all of them. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
We ask questions.
No, this is not a question and answer session. This is comment.
Will there be an option for us to ask questions?
Can the panel decide whether or not, can the panel vote whether or not questions should be able to be asked? Can we see if everybody says no, or if half of the people say, go ahead and ask a question? You wanted to close at 8 and we have a whole hour.
Right.
We do have an hour, but this is public comment. This is not question and answer.
But we the people ask for it.
Unfortunately, I was just advised by our counsel that it would be an open meeting law violation to have a question and answer period without it having been notified.
This is bureaucracy. You're just seeing an example of it.
Talk to the legislators down in Boise if you don't like the open meeting laws. Talk to the legislators.
Commission started electing the sheriffs. This is what is going to happen. If you have a complaint about the sheriff is going to say, go to talk to the commissioner. When you go talk to the commissioner, it's going to say, go talk to the sheriff. This is exactly an example.
Does anyone else wish to speak?
Are you guys above questions?
Open meeting laws are very specific. We cannot violate them. No, we
I think
cannot.
it applied towards elected officials, is that not right?
No, it applies to us as well. That's why you're here.
You can adjourn the meeting and then take questions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, William, we said that we would not adjourn until 8 o'clock, so we can't adjourn until then, in case someone comes in late thinking that they want to hear.
Dave,
Yes.
Nancy just informed me that they can email questions and we can answer them at a later date. No, I don't.
I was just informed that if you have questions, you can email them either to us or to the county commissioners, and they can be answered at a later date.
Where are the emails listed?
Nancy, are those emails listed on the website, county website?
Some of them are, we're getting the rest uploaded. Eventually they all will be. All of the emails.
They are either on the county website now or in the process of being placed on the county website.
Or in the process?
No, it's on the website.
All 9 of them?
Well, no, it's one email that will go to all 9.
Oh, that we hope that goes to all 9.
It does.
It does.
Goes to all of us. Yes.
Will you answer back?
Are we allowed to give a PS?
I was just asked if someone could take a break. I believe someone would like to step out, and then when we get back, say in 10 minutes, would you like to give a PS?
Want to take a break first? Let's do a 10-minute break. Like, it's 7 o'clock, let's do a 10-minute break and then...
We typically break at 7 o'clock. It's 10 after 7. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we can come back for your comment.
I joined the Navy and went to California, in the Navy, and never went back.
Yeah, that was true of a lot of people, especially.
Ladies, we did have someone who wanted to speak.
Thank you. I'm glad we had a chance to say a little PS, because as I was sitting back there listening to everything that everybody was saying, I realized I think we have a perfect example of appointed positions that have, I guess you could say, kind of brought such a divide in our community and with the public. And that was what happened with Panhandle Health, with the mask mandates, etc. And everyone was griping and complaining because they were all appointed positions. And we, the people, had no recourse on that. And I think that was a very telling sign of what the potential could be when positions are appointed. And I also want to reiterate also on what the one woman said about the coroner. That is very frightening. Every single position is important that's elected, but the coroner is the only one that has the ability to fire the sheriff, which is even more frightening because we count on our sheriff. I think what we've also seen is what happens when you give some people just a little bit of power. Everybody goes crazy, over at restaurants or stores, and people demanding that, put on your mask. And anyway, the whole issue is limiting our freedoms. And our government was designed to protect us, not to oppress us. And that's what we are looking for. One last thing. Oh, I found it very interesting that Evan Koch, who I do not know, I'm sorry to say, thought it very interesting that he pointed out that you as a commission need to respect the minority party and the minority people in the community, because this tends to be more of a conservative community rather than a progressive community. It's not even conservatives versus liberals anymore, it's conservatives versus progressives. Liberals are all about freedom and progressives are all about oppression. So I just found that to be very interesting that he would throw that in there when we want freedom. That's all we're asking for. And we get that the best via our elected officials. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Yes.
I'll say one more thing, because I think it's just an addendum. I won't go over what Linda was talking about, but again, my name is Kevin Heckendorf. I live in Hayden, and I think it's especially with exactly what Linda was talking about with the Panhandle Health situation that we had over the last year and a half. It's something that I was alluding to in my comments earlier. And specifically in regards to appointed positions. So when there was incredible community support for freedom here in our county and here in the Panhandle of Idaho. Panhandle Health went against so many, the overwhelming majority of people in wanting to express our freedom, live our daily lives, take care of our own health and our own families. And in turn, then the community. We have the right to do that. Panhandle Health said, no, we are going to mandate and we are going to tell you how you will behave on your daily basis, on a daily basis. And so what happened is that I find out, well, who is Panhandle Health Board? Who are these people that have this control seemingly, or that they think they do, over our lives? So I look it up and I find out that the county commissioners appoint each 2 people to Panhandle Health. Then I find out who's the one that is the liaison for the county, for Kootenai County, to Panhandle Health. And I called him, who is Bill Brooks. I called him specifically to talk with him. And the first thing he said is, oh, we have no control over Panhandle Health. And I said, well, sir, actually you do. You, as the county commissioners, appoint 2 of that body to the board. And he then said, oh, well, that has nothing to do with me. I said, sir, actually it does. You are the liaison, the official liaison for that body, with these 2 people, and they're trampling on the rights of the people in Kootenai County. He could care less about what was being said, and that was all because he had, I'll call it the plausible deniability of an appointed position that was now outside of his control that he didn't have to interact with the voters on. So it's a great example that Linda brought up. That's a specific example of me talking with our county commissioner and first basically trying to deflect and deny any oversight or intervention possibility. And then after I clarified to him what his responsibilities actually are, he then and he agreed with that and said, oh, I could care less if and I forget the 2
McLandris and Jay Nelson, I believe, Dr. Nelson, I believe are the two. That's been a while since I've talked to him about those things. But he said, oh, I could care less if they were off the board. I said, well, then is that going to be on your agenda to discuss as commissioners at the next meeting? He laughed at me over the phone and said, of course not, we have more things to be important, to concern ourselves with. And I think that's the way that, unfortunately, every single person in this room tonight, except for one, who was conveniently the second or third person to speak and then left as soon as he did, didn't want to hear anything else about the entire rest of the community and what our voices are saying to you as a study commission and to the commissioners in particular. Respect the rights of the people, respect our rights to address our issues with our elected officials. That needs to be the case. You need to reject this optional form of government, and you need to do it now.
Did someone say they wanted to speak just before he came up? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am.
One thing that, right.
Please identify yourself again.
Nina Beasley, and I live in Rathdrum. And one thing that I think about when they have talked about the elected officials, elected representatives, and how they can get more qualified candidates, I actually don't think that that's very accurate. And I'll give you one short example. I showed up to my Rathdrum budgeting meeting with my city council, and after the meeting I asked a couple planning and zoning questions, and the mayor said, you know what, we have a position open. He goes, you should apply, you're passionate. And I said, yeah, well, I'm going to the study commission every Wednesday and it conflicts with your meetings. And he goes, no, really, it's only one time a month. And then the city administrator said, you know what? I'll see you in a couple days when you apply. So the next day, I go in and I apply. And guess what? The next meeting, I'm appointed. Wow, that was really easy. Could you imagine what it would have been like if I was really good friends with them? Just like that, I could get appointed. But guess what? When you're elected, you have to go through thousands of voters. And I can guarantee you, many of you are very educated. Many of the people in this room are very educated, and they do their research. It's so much harder to get elected because you have to, and I work with candidates. I do precincts, I walk precincts. It takes a lot of work to get elected. You have to do way more work than it is to get appointed. And I really think that we need to consider that when you are considering changing from elected representatives to appointed representatives. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have been told that we are not allowed to start early, but we are allowed to end early. So if there's no one else who wishes to speak, I'll ask if there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Vote to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.
Didn't mean to sound so eager.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Somebody
for
had to
coming.
do it.